What is one advice you give for your younger self, for your 20-year-old self?
Well, basically, as I said, you have to take responsibility for your own professional growth. People like me who've been around for, at this point, 30 plus years, hard to believe, time flies by. There was nobody who really advises you, especially for immigrants. And you're literally on your own. There's no fallback, and you take risks, just like how you came over from Hong Kong. You have to take risks and just roll with whatever comes your way.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's a great project, and I think it'll benefit you, and hopefully I can share some of the things I've learned, and it'll be useful for somebody.
Immigration life is not that easy. I'm getting there. I might want to stay in the US. I'm not sure. Yeah, like it's all about luck sometimes if you want to get the H-1B or green card. But how to get to the position you are right now?
So yeah, as I said earlier, when I'm originally from India, I did my bachelor's in India in mechanical engineering from Guindy Engineering College. It's in the state of Tamil Nadu there. And I graduated among the top 8% of students that year. They do a countrywide test. So I came in the 92nd percentile. I worked for 1 year in India, and then I did my GRE and stuff, and then I got a scholarship from UMass Amherst, and I came over to do my master's in manufacturing engineering. And then, as I said, I also initially did not plan to stay here as long as, it's a very classic X+1 theory,
Right.
And I'll be here for a few years and head back. And the longer you stay, more difficult it is to take the roots out, and you just get over time, you really get grounded. So there's a lot of sacrifices on your side, your family side, but that's the journey of a very typical immigrant. Yeah. So yeah, I came over to Detroit in 1990, and I've been in the automotive industry since then for like 25 plus years. And then I went over to the startup side, especially with this LiDAR and autonomous driving and the technology taking up in LiDAR. And it's been fascinating. And yeah, it was a good move. And, so I have my own feelings about, I probably should have moved out of traditional companies into the startup world earlier than I did. So what happens with the traditional companies when you're coming out of universities and all is they're good for stability. You have a job and, likely stay there for a fair number of years. However, they put you in a silo. I mean, they train you to be a very special bolt in the machine. And so, that's their job, is to tune you to be that bolt that they need there. And then so you're useful for them in that position, but then you can get lost and in the sense that you think that companies will really care about your career and stuff, but I found out very late, really, you have to design your own profession and your own career. No one gives a damn about it other than you. Right. Your parents did, but they don't influence it so much. So you have to take your career into your own life. Essentially, envision where you want to go, and the jobs that you do along the way should basically help you acquire the skills you need for your journey. Okay, so I would never, if I look back on my life, I would never want to stay in the same company for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I mean, the longest I stayed was 14 years at one company, but that was at least 5 to 7 years longer than I should have stayed there.
Gotcha. Yeah, some really interesting insights. I'm wondering, to the point that you just mentioned, you don't want to stay in a big company. You want to move to the startup world earlier. So at what point did it, what happened that made you think that, okay, I should go to the startup world earlier?
Yeah, so it was not something which came suddenly. So first of all, I was in sensors business with one company, and it's a very traditional company. Look at my profile. I was with Bosch for 14 years in a wonderful company, as I said, a typical silo. And I was in engineering, and then for a long time. And then, we're developing this sensor for turning off the airbag for kids. And there's new technology at the time. And then we investigated technologies, and we selected one, and we brought it into life, and we started winning programs. But my sales guys would come in and say that, Rajeev, congratulations, we won a program. But the bad news is that we're losing money, and you need to figure out how to get money out of it. After a few of these cycles, I said, I'm in the wrong end of this business. I have to be on the front side, where I'm talking to the customers to see what the need is, what's the competition, because there was no need to win the project at a low price. So that's how I moved out of engineering into sales. And actually, I went from engineering to product definition. Essentially, you're figuring out what are the products you should make, what the market needs. And then from that, I moved into essentially sales. And so essentially at the end of my Bosch career, there was a company which was looking at my sensor experience and essentially said, they wanted to bring in someone who had automotive experience at a tier 1 level and help them develop a new business in the infrared side. So this was awesome. I went to Osram for developing the infrared business. And this is where I got into lasers and infrared LED for infrared cameras. So this was a very good step from my point of view. Gave me a good learning experience. But that step to move out of the safety of a big company to a smaller company was my first leap. And that I should have done earlier. That was my mistake, in my opinion. Gotcha. So it was a leap of faith that I'm making my own decision about where I want to go and what I want to do and what do I see coming in the future. To me, I could see the LiDAR and autonomous at that point to some extent. And so I went into the infrared side. And that was a good move because I was able to, interact with a lot of customers. And essentially at Osram, I was talking to a lot of LiDAR companies who were making LiDAR at the time and also infrared cameras for driver monitoring business. And after about 5 years of that, I talked to nearly 70 to 80% of the LiDAR manufacturing companies at that time. And I learned only so much. I was doing a lot of talking, and that's where SAE came and said, Rajeev, you seem to know a lot about this. Why don't you put a course together for LiDAR and infrared camera? And I said, okay, and when you make a course, it forces you to learn more and fill up the gaps of what you don't know, because now you're going to be teaching and you better know what the hell you're talking about. So that kind of forced me into learning even more. And then, so I'm still an SA instructor for LiDAR infrared camera. And whenever I teach a class, I always come away with something from the students also. It's not just a one-way traffic. I learn something from them also, always. So essentially, I could learn only so much. And then one of my biggest customers at that time was Velodyne LiDAR for my lasers. And they had a position for an automotive director. And it seemed like a good fit because I wanted to see a bigger picture of the LiDAR. So I came over to Velodyne and was with Velodyne for over 4 years. Basically gave me a chance to interact with a lot of autonomous companies doing ADAS autonomous and, not only in automotive side, but also in the farming side, looking at the drone companies, looking at AMR, you name it, wherever sensors and LiDAR are needed, I was interacting. And then essentially I was let go at the end of that merger. So I learned a good lesson there also, figure out which side of the train you are in. And you might want to think about running or hiding or getting on the top or whatever, but be prepared for some blood essentially. Anyways, in a way it was a good thing because after I got a chance to join Aeva, which is the next generation of the LiDAR technology. And I've been with Aeva now for about a year. And it's fantastic to me. FMCW LiDAR is the way to go. Definitely believe in it and think it's making a lot of progress. But yeah, it's still a good journey and I'm continuing to ride it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I see that you are technical sales, but I know that being a sales, you have to know as much detail as the engineers. You have to know the technology in depth too. Because for me, I was a project engineer intern. I have to do sales as well. I thought, okay, it's just all about business, but you have to know the engineering side as well.
You don't have to be an expert in it, but you should be able to tune into the wavelength regarding what is the problem that he's trying to solve in here. And do you have the right product for it? Because if you don't have the right product, it is better for you and him to part ways very quickly because you're wasting his time and you are not going to get a sale out of it because you don't have a good fit. So I always try to figure out whether I have the right product for his problem. If not, I might even sometimes recommend a competitor saying, I don't have it, but this guy might be better for you. And they appreciate that because next time, they will call me when there's a good fit for my stuff. So I try to help out, where we can point them in the right direction. So you build up your own ecosystem and your reputation in that way also.
Yeah, I guess the customer appreciate your honesty too and how you actually care about him. And
you have to. That's the true sale. It's not a one-time deal. He's going to be. You want him to be buying with you for a long time. And help him win because when he wins and he's using your product, you win. So it's actually smart and efficient way to not beat around the bush and figure out, whether it's a good fit or not. You got to save time. You can't be spending a lot of time with a customer where you don't have a fit. That's not smart at all.
Exactly, yeah. So you are in the LiDAR industry right now. How do you see the LiDAR technology evolving to support the autonomous driving industry?
Yeah, so it's LiDAR, as you know, is going through lots of changes and technology evolution. The industry is trying to drive the price down to like below $500. I mean, if you look at radar and cameras, they're well below $500. But you got to remember, there's 40 million radars sold every year. LiDAR is nowhere close to any kind of that kind of number, even like 1 or 2 million at most, if you put all of the automobiles together. The biggest problem, or let's say there's a few angles to the LiDAR side. Now, first of all, LiDAR is not just for automotive. There are many other industries who can use LiDAR. And each one has got their own requirements, about what is needed by the LiDAR. So I think the industry is figuring out that there's many kinds of LiDAR, and you got to find the right fit, for LiDAR. Someone wants a long range, a 360 vision. Some need just a directional. Someone needs a very big vertical view. Someone needs a narrow. Someone wants a region of interest scanning. So all of these things are there. So you have to figure it out. Obviously, the biggest market is automotive. So in automotive, you have your traditional consumer vehicle, and then you have the autonomous vehicle. The holy grail for autonomous is to have this robotaxi, which is let's say your Uber or Lyft, which is going around night and day with no driver and just making money. And it's a very cheap ride, and it's meant for the company. And that's really the holy grail for the robotaxis, guys. Of course, the holy grail for the trucking industry is to have trucks which is going around delivering goods, without losing time and not being afraid and not having accidents and being very efficient. So that's the holy grail for the trucking side. Now, the problem is essentially that the industry is not defining what is acceptable failure rate. They're going for zero deaths, zero collisions, and any collisions is not acceptable.
Right.
And to me, the industry needs to, first of all, engineers, you cannot design a perfect product. There has to be some margin for error. 99.99, you got to stop it at a few nines. You cannot have 100%, perfection in that. And that is a discussion or a battle, or let's say dialogue, that the industry is afraid to take up, saying that, I'm accepting 99.5 only. I'm willing to give up, 0.5% of crashes and deaths. And to me, most people will say this is fine, but the dialogue is not happening. And so what's happening is that you're setting yourself up for failure when you expect a perfect system. Most people who accept a robotaxi driver, which is, let's say, 5 to 10 times better than a human driver, they like to say that's fine. In the sense that as long as you don't kill me, but you have bumps here and there, and you're driving 5 to 10 times better than me, people will accept that. In a way, to me, you can look at Tesla. Tesla has been bold and it's having crashes, but it's not giving up, and people are still buying them. To me, that tells you the industry will accept that. But we need to have the dialogue, because the perfect system really doesn't exist. And so you may put as many sensors you want, but you got to accept some kind of a failure rate. And I think that's what the industry is struggling to find is, where is the value proposition where the technology that I'm putting in is cost effective and profitable. Most of the companies who are doing level up now are losing money, but they are big companies, they can afford to do that, but they see the holy grail and they're going after it. But they have to define that operational domain to make it profitable, because at some point, people will start saying, enough is enough. This is not becoming profitable. I can't see an end to it.
Right.
And so you got to find that spot, before the cash runs out or something else comes in. In the sense that I'm seeing the drone industry coming up, and there are drones already flying people. Maybe having autonomous drones up there is an easier problem than driving on the road. You don't know. Things will not last forever. Something else will come around to totally change the trajectory in which the industry is going. So that's really the struggle right now. And in my opinion, maximum revenue potential is more in the ADAS, at least in the near term, rather than in autonomous.
Right.
And having that volume and doing an L2 plus L3, wherein people are, if I'm going on a big highway, I'm okay to take my hands off, and drive for 5 hours on a highway. People be willing to do that, and then take over when it's raining or snowing, then you get off that and you start driving yourself. That's the sweet spot that the industry is struggling to find. And once they can define that and define the requirements for the LiDAR, it gets standardized, the price will come down, and everyone will be happy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think what I recently learned is that an engineering job is to decide what is good enough. So it's never perfect. And you have to know, if I achieve 99.999% of safety, okay, it works. It's way better than a human could drive, then that's fine. But still, there are there might be some accident or some unexpected scenarios that happen.
Sure.
If it will save people, then like it is a good technology.
Yeah, I mean, you can put yourself, let's say there's an autonomous driver, and then let's make a test track with all kinds of obstacles and put a human driver there and compare it against the autonomous driver and let people see, can you drive better than this thing under all of these different conditions? And you can have rain and ice and whatever in the, up and down, make it a very difficult track to really test the skills. And that's how you get people to say that, yeah, I can trust that. If that thing can do that, I can do it. I'm willing to let my hands go and let the thing drive me. So that's the level of confidence that the public has to get before it really starts taking off. But we are not there yet.
Okay. So how do you think we could address the safety issues?
Well, again, so autonomous is a very long tail problem. So autonomous, you have to define the operational domain. Human beings, when it snows or rains, we slow down. Okay. So I don't need to see 200 meters when it is snowing or raining. Because I'm slowing down, I can cut my range 100 meters maybe, and that's plenty for me. And as an industry, we are not coming together to define the operational domain and the requirements for the LiDAR. Every OEM is making their own LiDAR, or they're picking and choosing and experimenting, trying it out and throwing it out. And that's really a waste of time. I mean, if there is some amount of collaboration where the best minds come together and agree on what is a good enough operational domain for an L2 plus and L3, or you only want to do an L4, and standardize the requirements with the best minds, that will help accelerate, bring the price down, and give you the right product. And right now, since there is no standard, everyone is free to experiment, what the LiDAR should be, how far it should go, what we need. And that is really causing the delay in reaching that sweet spot of price versus performance for the LiDAR.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess a lot of OEMs are hesitant about adding LiDAR because it is pretty expensive if you want to do it for like mass-produced vehicles. And yeah, I saw that there's Atlas is one of the automotive grade LiDAR from your company. It's probably an easy question. How does that product stand out from your competitor?
Essentially, it's a FMCW LiDAR, which means that you get velocity for every point. Every other LiDAR is a time of flight LiDAR. You don't get velocity for that. You got to integrate the distance with time to get velocity out of that. Whereas this one, because you're sending out a continuous laser beam and you're getting the reflected beam and you're measuring the phase shift, you're able to get distance and you're able to get velocity with it. Whereas all of the other LiDARs, you're shooting photons, it's hitting an object coming back, and you basically get a signal bump and you measure the time of flight and the distance of it. But you don't know the value of velocity is that when you look at a bunch of photons or points which is coming back at you, can immediately club together objects which are moving at the same speed and say that that's one object. That's a car, that's a person, and everything else is the ground. And I ignore most likely all of the static things because I already have an HD map with me. And now the job of perception and safety becomes much easier because I can concentrate on the moving objects and see the trajectory and do my path planning and everything else, separately. Likely, I think we are one of the very few, if not, most mature FMCW companies. I mean, there are a couple of more, but they're nowhere anywhere at the level.
Gotcha. It could tell the velocity of a certain point as well, which I think it will be very beneficial on maybe predicting not just what agent it is, like the object detection, but also maybe the trajectory of the agent as well, which would be like a very important thing for predicting the behaviors of other cars or other humans or pedestrians. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to ask this question for like the younger people. What is one advice you give for your younger self, for your 20-year-old self?
Well, basically, as I said, you have to take responsibility for your own professional growth, in a sense that don't expect anybody, your boss, wherever it is, at any point in your life, you're responsible for your career. And if you don't like it, do something about it, change it. Don't accept something that you're not comfortable with and live with it. Don't tolerate it. Okay, learn to say that either I'm going to fight this or I'm going to change. Either that thing changes or I'm changing, but I'm not going to live with the pain. Okay, don't become that boiling frog where the temperature is slowly increasing and you learn to keep frying and still be in the water. Do you know the boiling frog thing? If you put a frog on hot boiling water, it'll jump out. But if you put the frog into the water and slowly increase the temperature, it'll just stay there and boil into death. So don't do that. Okay, when you don't like it, get out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something I did not do that, and that's why I'm passing that on that side. And then always be curious and always be learning. I mean, see what is coming in the future in terms of technology or in your line of interest, whatever it is, whether it is music, whether it is painting, whether it is engineering, whether it's medical, I mean, see what is coming in the next 5 years. Just educate yourself, and essentially, if this is your line of work and you see that coming, ideally you want to be going after those skills and developing those skills because it's going to help you in your own career. So keep an eye on of that and look for positions which will basically get you those skill sets, whatever it is, whether it's technology or whether it is management or whatever it is that you like, take responsibility for moving that. Don't wait for someone to give you a promotion. Change your job and get your promotion. Okay, that's really a better way to go than to stay in the same job. Most people, once you're in the job, it's very difficult to move up to the next ladder. It'll take you what will take you 5 years might take you 2 years if you just jump your job.
Right.
Okay, really, I mean, if the company doesn't appreciate you, has not appreciated in 2 years, it's likely not going to appreciate you in 5 to 6 years. So don't wait for that to happen. Don't follow the line which is typically given that, hey, you're doing okay, but you to do a few professional growth courses, you improve a few things, and you're ready for the next step. Don't buy that BS. Okay, so get your own promotion by getting out and finding something else. And as I said, large companies are good in early stages, but good for learning some skills, but don't hang on too long because they will put you into a silo. So every few years you got to be changing either jobs or companies, or so that you're learning something new and you keep growing on that. So and then when you think you have become an expert in something, that's the time for you to move sideways or change jobs, because now you're not learning anything much. Right. And that's too bad.
Yeah. I guess I heard like an analogy that everyone is kind of on a hamster wheel. They just keep running in the same wheel, but they're not moving forward anywhere. But it's also kind of scary for people to, jump off the hamster wheel and actually notice that, they're just keep on at the same spot and not like learning or not improving at all. And for me, like I recently got noticed that, I could not continue my internship. And that's why I'm trying to do something else to actually own my own career. And that's why
you're doing a very smart thing. Yes. So that is the leap of faith. You got to have faith. Hey, look back on your life. Okay. Every time I took risks, I went through a little bit of pain, but I landed in a better place. Look at your own history. Okay. And then have faith in yourself that I can do this. I'm ready to take the jump. Don't accept that mediocrity. Don't be afraid to take the jump. That's why people end up staying in the large cruise ship of a company. Never really jump into the speedboat and have a good ride of where they really want to go, because the cruise ship goes wherever it wants to. It doesn't care what you want. You're just going along for the ride. I would rather be on a boat that I have some control over. It may be dangerous, but at least I'm going to go where I want to go.
Right, yeah. And the bigger the risk, the bigger the return.
True. You have to take risks. I mean, take calculated risk. Know yourself. Right. It's not a gamble. You're not gambling with it. You know what you have on your hands. The cards you have your cards. So play them well.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I honestly, I want to do a startup sometime, but I also understand that doing a startup is definitely not easy. I've do some side business, but it kind of going not so good. But yeah, it's just any advice that you give.
So when it comes to startups, first of all, you got to have the right problem.
Right.
And that's something that you're passionate about and you really believe that this is a problem that is worth solving in my mind. Okay, so that you see the problem and you see the solution. That's basically your idea. Okay, so once you have that particular idea, you need to essentially, figure out, how are other people managing without the solution of yours. So essentially, do a good survey to make sure that there is no other solution other than what you are looking to develop, or there's a good value proposition to do that. Okay, so that the more time you spend to ensure that there really is a value proposition, and that is by talking to people, interviewing potential customers, that, hey, if I make you something like this, would that be interesting for you? How much would you be willing to pay for that? And, do all of that work before you start the development of that thing itself. So do that work. And then to actually execute that work itself, then that's where you reach out to your network and see who can help you with that thing. And most people, in my opinion, when you're doing a startup, you have a regular job, unless you have a rich uncle, Most people have a regular job and they're working out on the side until they bring it to a certain point wherein they are able to find investors and then move on from.
So yeah, I totally agree with the problem thing, and it's important to start with an idea that solves the actual problem and move to what they call like the product market fit as soon as possible. And what are some advice you would give to reaching out to potential customers on figuring out, is this actually a problem that you are facing? Like, how would you approach it?
Well, depending on whatever the product is, you got to see what is a watering hole for that product. Which conferences? Where could I go to meet a bunch of people who are very interested in this problem and solving this problem or talking about this problem? And you got to find that watering hole and go and meet the people there face to face. Okay, that's really how you want to do it. Yeah, you could go through other sources like LinkedIn or social media, but in my opinion, nothing like a face-to-face. And best to find those watering holes and go there. And whether it's a conference, it's a group of people who meet regularly to talk about something like that. So you got to find that group.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I agree. Like the face-to-face connection, you could read people's emotions. That's like the genuine connection. I totally agree with that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot from your experience, and thank you for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you, David. You're welcome, and I wish you the very best. Just have faith in yourself and keep chugging along. You're doing the right thing here.
Thank you so much.